You always are in a constant feeling like you're going to tip over.
It's definitely a, you don't want to say an acquired taste, but it takes a while to get used to it.
Yeah. Hey, it's Doc, and today we are at Complete Offroad with Rich Conlon, good friend of mine from many, many years back.
Many years, yes.
And we are going to talk about a love affair today.
Yep. And not with Andy.
Well,
With the Jeep.
maybe in the past. So, and there happens to be one right behind us, the love affair with this vehicle, this type of vehicle.
Yep.
How many of these do you have?
Oh, I don't even know how to answer that one. I have 2 that run, 1 that's street worthy, and 2 other ones that don't run, and a bunch of parts.
Cool.
So I don't know what the official tally would be on that, but a pile of them.
I guess we haven't even said exactly what it is. So what is
So
it?
these are the forward control Jeeps. So basically you're driving these in front of the tire. So it makes it a very interesting driving experience. The cab is forward, so most of the weight is forward. So as you're driving, they're a little on the tippy side too, which makes them fun. They're different than all of the other Jeeps out there. They're different than a lot of vehicles that are out there. They just make you smile when you drive them. They make you smile when you see them.
Well, and they're very capable.
They are very capable. They are 4-wheel drive. They handle okay for what they are. You can get around some very tight spaces with them. Going up hills is good. Going down hills, a little sketchy, but still fun.
So is there any truth to the can do a 60% grade?
Uphill, if you
uphill.
read carefully, 60% grade uphill. I don't think I'd do a 20% grade
Mechanics
downhill.
Illustrated 1957 or something like that?
Yep.
So
they don't run out of traction. Like I said, they handle good. You're very weird feeling. So when you're off-road with them and you break over, like dropping into a creek or something, normally you're used to the tire being in front of you and it kind of slides down. You're still kind of stable and then you slide down into the ditch. On something like this, you come up to a drop-off, you're actually dangling over the drop-off and then you settle straight down, which is a very, very weird feeling, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. They're just a goofy vehicle, and I just have a love affair with them.
So, and each of them here have a name,
yes,
right?
Yes, they do. Yep.
So the one in here, this
one is Clementine. We picked up Clementine a few years ago over Avoca, Wisconsin, so it's just outside of Platteville. Was sitting in a field over there. Farmer had it, and he was a mechanic. He was a used car salesman. He was an architect, a musician, farmer, a little bit of everything. And he had passed away, and his son was helping his mom move some of the vehicles off the farm. He was very much an automotive guy, and he didn't want to see them be scrapped, so he was doing everything he could to get them in the hands of people that loved them.
I was going to ask how Clementine ended up where Clementine did.
I really don't know. From the stories that I got from the gentleman who I bought it from, if somebody brought a vehicle into him, he would try and fix it with whatever he could. Not necessarily go to the parts store and buy new stuff, but he would, somebody would bring in an FC and there's not a whole lot of them around, and somebody would have an FC coming up at an auction, he'd go buy it and get it back, and he'd take something off of it or just have it in case he was doing something else. This particular one, I don't know why. It was sitting there was no wheels and tires on it. We picked it up with some wheels and tires, brought it on the trailer, brought it back here, got it running, it runs, the electrical works, it drives.
And it wasn't hard to get running.
It wasn't terribly hard, no.
So, and when was this built?
This one is 64, so this one's actually close to the tail end of the production on them. So they started in 57, so the 57 would have been the narrow track version. And when we look at Crusty a little bit later, you'll see this one, the tires, these are a little bit bigger tires than stock, but the tires on this were about flush with the outside of the body. When you look at Crusty, you'll see they are tucked way under.
And when did they switch to the wide track? Okay, 58.
So 57 was the first year for them. They made about 10,000 of them. They were very tippy, they were kind of wobbly, and they immediately realized what was going on, and so for 58 they widened them out. So 57 is basically a CJ5 chassis, so the springs are underneath the frame, just like a CJ5 would be. In 58 they went to a wider spring, they moved the mounting outside of the frame, more similar to a truck, and then widened the axle out on them also.
Very cool. So we're going to go see Crusty now, right?
Yes.
Crusty. But first I want Patty to take a little pan around the showroom at Complete Offroad so you can see all the cool stuff that's here. That's your Jeep with the LS in it, right? Very cool. And then we got, make sure you get the Jeeps up top there, Patty. All right, enough panning. Let's go. Let's go see Crusty.
Yay, Crusty.
Yay, Crusty. And here he is.
There's Crusty.
Crusty. How long have you had Crusty?
You know, I honestly don't know when I bought Crusty. Similar story to Clementine, though. Had a customer call me one afternoon and said, hey, I had Willie out in front,
Okay.
my FC150, just sitting there as yard art.
Right.
And he called me, he goes, hey, I found an FC for sale. He said, would you be interested in it? I'm like, sure, where's it at? He goes, it's here in town. So I called the gentleman, and he was up by the hospital up there.
Okay.
Middle of winter, colder than snot. And go up and look at it, and it's covered in snow. And talking to him, and he works construction, and he got moved down south for the winter, and he couldn't take it with him. He didn't have a place to keep it, and he wanted to sell it.
Was Crusty running at that time?
He said it was running, yes.
Okay.
So I had never heard it run. I had never driven one before. And we're talking about it, and he goes, well, what are you going to do with it? I said, I'm going to kind of just keep it running like that. He goes, okay, I'll sell it to you.
Oh, nice.
I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, I keep having people come up, well, I want to buy it and put big axles on it and big tires on it and take it wheeling. I said, I flat out told him I'm not going to sell it to you. So that's how Crusty came to be. We talked about it some more, and I said, does it run? And he goes, yeah, it did. I said, does it run now? It should. So I said, all right, here's the deal. I'll give you this much if you can get it running. I'll give you this much if you can't. Okay, fair enough. So we left that night, and he calls me 8 o'clock the next morning. He goes, I got it running. Okay. Hooked up the car trailer, went up, middle of winter. The house it was at had an alley behind it. He goes, pull the truck and trailer up in the alley, and we'll load it back there. Okay, that's fine. So we get up there. The alley is all ice, downhill. Get the truck parked, get in. He reaches in, fires it up. Cool. Did the paperwork and stuff. All right, there you go. Never driven one before. No idea what the shift pattern was or anything. Didn't really know if the brakes worked. Downhill on ice, come up the car trailer nice and slow. Couldn't get on the trailer. Had to get a little bit of a run at it. Got it on the trailer, hit the brake pedal, prayed to God it stopped. It did. So tied it down, and that was my first ever drive of an FC was onto a car trailer.
Well, you told me Crusty doesn't need brakes because Crusty's so slow.
And it can be, yes. Clementine in the showroom has no brakes, has not had any brakes since the day I got it. We take that one to the shows and stuff. We got a rooftop tent on it, so that's our hotel for the weekend when we go. Just put it in low range. They go nice and slow. You don't have to worry about it. And you push the clutch in, and they just stop.
So is Crusty street legal?
Crusty has insurance and a license plate.
Okay. So
Street legal, I don't know. The electrical really doesn't work very much on it at all.
So you told me that Crusty's first year production.
Yes, Crusty is an early production 57. So I think we ran the numbers, it was years ago. It's like 62 or 67 on the FC production on the first year.
And essentially Jeep just took a CJ5
Correct.
and modified a forward cab on it.
Correct.
And
so the chassis itself is very similar to the CJ5. A lot of stuff is the same. So the axles, tires, stuff like that, that's all the same. Same motor. Transmission, transfer case are basically the same. The shift mechanism on them is a little bit different on the FC because you're shifting from in front of the motor instead of behind. But as far as running gear goes, this stuff is all readily available. When you get into the sheet metal and the specialty stuff on them, not so much.
So do we know anything about Crusty's previous life? Because I see there's a
I do
winch
not,
in the back here.
No, put in by me. So when we picked up Clementine, I picked up a couple other FCs on that same trip. And as we're walking off of the property, there was a fence line with a bunch of sticker bushes down there, and there's this big pile of sticker bushes. And you could see about this much of the wrecker boom sticking out of the top of it.
Okay.
And I said, what's that? He goes, that's an old CJ down there. Walk down and start stomping down the sticker bushes. It was a dually CJ5 with a wrecker in the back of it.
Okay.
I said, what do you want for that? He goes, $200. Mine, load it, we'll take it. So we ended up throwing that one on the trailer too.
All right. So this didn't come with Crusty.
This did not come with Crusty,
this is
no,
a
and the winch did not
modification.
come with Crusty.
Okay.
That's a whole other story, but that winch came on another flat fender that we have.
Have you functionally winched anything with it?
No, actually the winch is just filling a hole that was already in the bed.
Okay. It
So-
looks good.
Yep. The bed on this, the floor of the bed is supposed to be metal. It had rotted away at some point. Somebody put some wood in there.
Oh, okay.
It just kind of was bouncing around and vibrating because it really doesn't attach to anything because the whole structure
maybe,
is rusted.
I thought maybe it had a real
No.
wood.
No. The gentleman who had it, 2 people before me, was over in Wisconsin. He was a contractor. So for the electrical on it, I told you none of the electrical stuff worked. He had one of the blue 3-gang home switch boxes screwed to the dash with some house light switches in it, and that's what he was running the electrical with. So that came out on day one. So that was basically the end of the operational electrical at that point.
All right, let's go explore some more.
All right.
So tell me about the Narrow Track.
So in 57, they were using the CJ5 chassis, which was the Narrow Track.
Okay.
Which, as you can see, in comparison to the one that was out in the showroom, the tires are tucked way underneath the body. So it's the same track width as the CJ5 with a wider body on it. Made good for getting into places. Maneuverability was good, but they were pretty tippy. So
7-slot grill, like every other Jeep.
Yep. And if you look at this, you'll notice the fins here. Those actually don't go through the radiator. That is just the air inlet for the heater box. All of the air for cooling it comes up from underneath.
So what color was this originally?
That's such a good question, Andy. I think it was a version of red.
Really?
So yeah,
you would know that.
Yeah,
I would guess white.
The interior is red. The engine cover is red. All of the outside had the gray primer on it, and then the blue and the white. I really didn't see any over hints of red on the exterior, but generally they were red or red and white if they did the color split on them. One question that's been asked numerous times in the FC forums and groups and stuff that I'm in is how many different interior combinations were there? Because there's some very interesting fabrics that were used in the seats and beading around the seats and the dash covers and different door panels and stuff like that, and nobody seems to have an answer of, you know, what the reasoning was on any of that.
So it wasn't just a repurposed CJ5 interior then?
No, no.
So
all of the interior is specific to the FC.
Okay, and I see our little dog on top.
I have a little dog on the top.
Or did he come like that?
He did not come like that. I had my neighbor at home passed away shortly after I bought this, and we went to his auction, and there was a tray of just junk, and he was a truck driver, and that was in there.
It's the perfect addition.
We picked it up. There was holes in the roof already, so we just dropped it in, stuck some nuts on the bottom, and called them good. So the light on the top is original to this vehicle when I bought it. It was not wired up. We ran a wire up to it, and miraculously that works. So
did Crusty have a snowplow on it at some point?
Crusty had a snowplow on it,
Okay.
yep. Clementine had a snowplow on it. Willie out front had a snowplow on it. Tippy at home had a snowplow on it. A lot of them had snowplows on them.
So going back to the Narrow Track, and I don't know if you'll know the answer for this, I read that these were pretty popular with railroad crews, and they would drive them on the rails.
You could rig them up to run on the rails, yes.
Okay, but it wasn't specifically for narrow tracks.
No, it was just kind of a byproduct of what
something
it was.
that they liked because of the vehicle, not because of the narrow track.
When these were designed, they were hoping that they would be more of a civilian truck, but the civilian market didn't really latch onto them like they thought it would. But they used them a lot in commercial stuff, and cities would buy them, and airports would buy them. They were just a nice, small, compact utility truck for, at that time, when you think of what else was available, you know, you think of a 57 pickup, and they were kind of big and bulky, and, you know, the big round fenders, and, you know, you get something like this, you can get it in and out of places a lot easier than you can a full-size truck.
I read it was too futuristic, that the population thought it was
quite a bit different
advanced
than a lot of stuff that was out there. You know, they had this. Ford came out about the same time with the Econoline van, and, you know, the Dodge van pickup trucks, and Chevy had one, I think, with the side doors. Or was that Dodge? I don't remember. But those were more of a unibody style setup than a cabin bed.
Okay.
So
did the Dodge and the Ford fare better? Who won that war?
I think the Dodge and Ford and Chevy ended up being more civilian side of stuff. Whereas the Jeep kind of went more towards the commercial market. And I don't think it was intended that way from the way I understand it, but that's just the way. Military took versions of them, like the one behind you there.
Pan over here, Patty. Okay, we're going to move on over to this bad boy because it just can't sit in the corner and not get some attention from us while we're doing this. So how rare are four-doors?
Four-doors are pretty rare. There's approximately 500 of the four-door M677s built. This one is number 475, I believe the owner told me. They originally came with a Surlest 3-cylinder 2-stroke diesel in them. The original motor is very, very hard to find in operational status, even harder to find parts for them if you do have one. At some point, something apparently happened with this one, and it was replaced with a Buick 6-cylinder. The gentleman that owns it now bought it non-running and brought it down to us to see if he can get it running. If he can get it running and driving, he's going to make a decision on how far he wants to go with the restoration on it, or if he just wants to drive it as is for now.
Is this an original bed?
Yes.
It's actually nice.
This is
condition.
a very
Wow.
solid
Wow.
truck.
This is very nice condition, and you got your Subaru Brat seat in the back.
So these were based off of the FC150 chassis.
So interestingly, the spare tire mount is up high on this one, where it's down low.
You don't have room in front of the fender to the
Crusty.
cab.
Ah, okay.
And these originally came with the wooden jump seats in the back for hauling troops.
Well, I was going to ask what the purpose was.
Yep.
So back to Crusty. Did Crusty work for Sunoco?
No,
Someone's gonna ask
we
that
just had a
question.
Sunoco sticker down here, and it looked good on the side, so we stuck it on there.
All right, so what other features do we need? We need to take a look at the interior of Crusty.
We can take a look at the interior. Yeah.
I'll meet you on the other side there. So how do you drive Crusty?
With a smile on your face.
Yeah?
He actually drives pretty good. I mean, they track pretty good. The passengers got plenty of room. Put your feet up on the dash and just kick back and relax. We did add some seat belts to this a few years ago. When we got it, the door latches on the driver's door didn't work real good. So when you're driving, you're hanging onto the steering wheel and you kind of got your arm around the door to hang on because the body's tipping back and forth, and the door kept coming open. So we decided rather than hanging on the door that's swinging around, we put some seat belts in it.
So what do we have for gauges?
Nothing operational.
Nothing operational.
No, I shouldn't say that. The oil pressure gauge does work in
So
here.
is that a speedometer? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep, that's our speedometer. 0 to 9. It does go faster than 9 miles an hour. But
And then were these original gauges, or are they something added later?
they're the original style and placement. I don't know if they are, in fact, the original gauges to this truck. I don't know.
And the heater, which we know doesn't work because
Correct.
there's a bunch of wires hanging off it
Yep.
over here, was that electric? Was it
There's an-
gas like a Volkswagen, or
No,
was it
no, but
run by-
it's hydronic. It runs off. You can see the hose coming up the bottom there.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Going up to the heater core. The valves and stuff have never moved since we got it. So never bothered to play with them. We drive it in the summer, pretty much keep it stored in the winter most of the time.
There you go. And then 3-speed transmission?
3-speed transmission, home doorknob for shifter. Pretty
Very
handy.
nice. Is that a choke?
That
down
is
there?
that is the choke right there. This is your transfer case shifter. It's a single stick shifter, unlike a CJ would have. So you got your 4 low, your 4 high, and your 2 high, all in one swing.
And I see a lever underneath the dash. What's that lever?
This is the
do?
parking brake.
That's the parking brake.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, and then we have the
So
engine
as
back
long as
here.
we're in here, before you do that, we
Oh,
have
sorry.
a few things in here that are relatively rare and hard to find in the FC world.
Okay.
Cigarette lighter. Why, I don't know. Ashtray, intact. Very rare. No, not very rare. Rare. Wanted, desired, I don't know. Pick the word you want to use. These are not the original seats for this. And a glove box. Glove boxes, people pay goofy money for the glove boxes.
Really?
I don't know why. And there was different variations of the interior parts. Some had the cardboard liner. Some of them were just metal. Some were a front with a box on them. This one is all metal with a metal bottom. There's no liner in it.
So what were the seats out of?
I don't know what these came out of.
Okay.
They were. I don't know.
And so looking at the ceiling, so would this have had a liner kind of like the Land Cruiser, or is this the thin foam with some plastic over it? Or?
So they had. So this piece is kind of still in here. This is the material that would have been used
okay.
on the headliner. It's like a perforated cardboard. So they had a piece like this that went around the edge, and then there was another piece that was just kind of above it. So it wasn't one formed piece for the whole thing. It's like one poorly formed piece on the top, and then these pieces kind of hiding the ratty edge around it.
So and I believe rumor has it that at one point they made something along the lines of a minivan FC.
It wasn't a minivan. It was an M677.
Okay.
And it was similar to that. It was a military variant, 3-door configuration. So 2 front doors and then 1 side door. A friend of mine, Dan DeVries, out in central Iowa, has one of those. He also has a 4-door M677.
Well, it's
Like-
my understanding that there's very few of those.
Very few of them.
Very few.
Yes.
Like a dozen.
Very
kind
few.
of.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't remember exactly the number, but there is not many. So he does have one of those as well. And his four-door actually has the original Surless motor in it yet. So and that one's named Smokey, and that was a lot of fun to drive around
And you
in.
said the original Surless motors are quite rare as well.
Quite rare, yes.
Okay, so what's the
having-
motor in this?
This has the F134.
Okay.
So the second variant of the 134 motor that Jeep used. The original flathead would have been in like the CJ2s, CJ3s. When you look at the CJ3B, had the taller hood on them. That's because they went to this style motor that actually had the valve cover and the overhead valve on it, so it was a little bit taller than the original flathead style motor that was used.
And what kind of horsepower did this put out?
These are about 75 horsepower.
With probably matching torque, do you think, or better
Now you're
torque?
throwing numbers at me. I'm
Well, I
not
know.
Sure.
Yeah, that's my job.
Like I said, it's a love affair more than a learning curve.
That
So-
is true. And then there's that very tiny air cleaner.
Yes, it was originally an oil bath cleaner, and I believe down there the cleaner itself is still there. The mechanism going down, I have the horn, I just haven't put it on yet. This is a nice little air cleaner, came from the auto parts store here in town.
So what?
That's the battery in there.
Oh, okay.
So these originally had, where the wells are here, there was originally like a cardboard panel that was level with the floor.
Okay.
And would kind of seal off that area so your stuff didn't fall down in there. Crusty
Crusty's lost his cardboard a long time ago.
lost the cardboard a long time ago, lost the actual cab corners down to the bottom a long time ago. So we were getting ready to go to a show one day, and we had some stuff, and I really wanted to just throw some parts, some antifreeze and whatever behind the seat and not have it land in the road. So we drove Crusty over to the shipping department over here and hit the old button on the foam machine and got the hot foam bag and stuffed it in there. So there's foam bags preformed to the bottom of the cab corner in here, just to keep stuff from falling out the bottom for now.
Kind of the same thing that you get from Amazon.
Kind of. Well, see,
Except-
see, we're just holding stuff. So here's our cab corner fillers here. They're actually pretty handy.
Boy, I could use that for my original Land Cruiser. I wish I would have thought of that. All right, so we have.
And one more thing before
Oh,
you leave. So
okay.
in '57, they had the small round dome lights in them. After that, they went to a bigger rectangle style plastic lens dome light in them. So these are actually pretty cool. They're all metal. They're really neat.
It looks like it lights up well.
It does. Actually, that does work. So.
Well, this is awesome. Let's move on to the back here.
All right.
Let's see. So have you ever taken the spare tire off?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it actually, I think when we got it, it didn't have the spare tire there.
Because it
and that's
looks,
when
it
we
looks
grabbed
like it
from
would be
something else.
difficult to get out.
It's actually very simple.
Really?
Take the two lug nuts out, pull the bottom out, drops right out.
Okay. And like I said, we have to take a look at everything. There's the winch.
That's our non-operational winch. So somebody before me had cut the floor out. I'm assuming they were doing some work on the transfer case and just cut the wooden floor out. This is a winch that we had at home sitting in the barn off another flat fender that we got, and it just happened to land right in there perfect. So basically we threw it in there just to fill the hole that was in there. And then the wrecker boom on the back came out of that CJ5 dually that I had mentioned earlier. And the width between the fender wells on the FC150 and the fender wells on the CJ5 is exactly the same. So we just took this and dropped it in. In the CJ5, the springs were broken and stuff, and they had U-bolts that went through the plate on the boom right down around the axle. And so the axle, the frame, and the boom were all solid mounted together.
Wow.
In here, it's just sitting on the wooden floor with some lag bolts holding it in place. So it's very non-operational, but it just looks cool. So,
Right, and so on the FC150, I think it bears mentioning that this was the largest bed available at the time.
it was
for
the
vehicle
largest
size?
bed for the smallest vehicle.
Okay.
So
And this, I heard a story that this is actually shorter than a Nash Metropolitan.
yes,
That's hard to believe.
yes, because they're small, but they
Yeah.
look big. So
I guess, yeah.
I mean, Nash Metropolitan's a small car with full-size fenders.
So that's quite the tow hitch. That's pretty awesome.
It is. This, once again, this came off of another Jeep that we had laying around, and it is missing the tie bars that go up to the frame, so kind of non-operational. That's why we left this nice fancy hitch on there.
I
so
do
nobody
love
try and use
period
it.
correct modifications.
Yes.
What else should we know about this? Well, here's the gas tank. Is that an original
The
gas
gas tank is not original.
Okay.
This was built by somebody prior to us. If you take it off, you can kind of see on the outside, but on the inside where it's protected from the sun, that logo from the oil tank is, very visible on the inside. The original tanks for these would have been rectangle, like this one over here on the
look
floor.
like that.
Yep.
Okay, let's go take a look at that for a second.
This tank actually goes with this chassis, which is another Narrow Track FC150 that we're working on for a customer.
So that is an original tank, or is that a?
That is the original tank,
Wow.
yes.
Okay. And are the frames prone to any weaknesses or rusting or anything like that? Or
It's a Jeep, so yeah, they're prone to rusting.
Right.
You can see here on this particular one where they were kind of boxed together. They held and they rusted there on both sides.
Wherever they held water.
Correct.
Yeah.
The FC steering linkage mechanism here, this is a pass-through for where the shaft would go through for the fan that would ride up there. And then this is the supports for the radiator itself. The cross members are a little bit different in a couple of places, like this front one is different than the CJ5 would be. The frame itself is very, very similar though.
Oh, look, I found an engine.
Yep. This is the internal workings of a Narrow Track FC150. These are out of the customer's one behind us. So this is the F134 motor. The transmission transfer case are sitting right there. This
It's tiny.
They are very tiny, yes. And this one's actually got the PTO out the back as well.
Was a PTO a common option for these, or?
A lot of times, yes, when they would go for the commercial side of stuff, because they'd be running pumps or lifts, or you could power the gearbox out the back and put 3-point arms
I was
on
going
the
to
back
ask,
like you could with the
where
CJ.
did the PTO exit at?
You could run the PTO shaft right out the center here. Right out of here.
Okay.
So you could put your PTO gearbox on there and run
Right.
stuff out back. But you could also run pumps and stuff right off the transfer case if you wanted to.
Okay, let's take a look at this engine.
So going
notice.
back over here,
Yeah.
actually, you can look at the motor, or we can go a little bit farther. These would be the tie bars for the hitch that we were just talking about over there.
Okay.
And then underneath there is the weight. So this is a big cast iron weight that the FC150s used. Because they were so nose heavy, they put this weight, weighs about 200 pounds, mounts up between the frame rails in the back, right in front of the cross member. And that was to hold the back of them down.
Okay.
So a lot of people, when they get to modifying vehicles, they get these, I'm going to put a big motor in, I'm going to put different brakes in, I'm going to put some power brakes in it. Actually, the drum brakes that are in there when they're operating properly are very, very adequate. You hit the brakes on that and you can actually lift the back of the truck off the ground.
Wow.
So, with those little skinny tires.
So they actually felt the need to put a
Without
monstrous
that, they're
200-pound weight.
absolutely miserable to drive.
Really?
Yep.
Now, does yours have the weight in the back, or
Mine has the weight, yep.
Or I was going to say that maybe your little crane there would.
Yep, I have the weight in the back end. I have the weight from the wrecker boom, and then we also have the winch in there, but it's not quite all the way to the back. But yeah, you can see right here is where that weight sits.
Okay.
So,
Well, let's do a little circle around it, and then tomorrow we are going to experience this four-wheeling firsthand
yes.
out at the farm, which
And
should
Doc
be a
gets
lot
to
of
drive
fun.
his first FC.
I get to drive my first FC. I'm very disappointed that my Bronco's not here yet, and I'm kind of sad I should have brought my Land Cruiser.
You should have brought the Land Cruiser. I think last time you wheeled the Land Cruiser, you were wheeling with Crusty.
Actually, the video that I posted has
Mm-hmm.
the thumbnail is a picture of us with
Both of them.
Crusty
Yep.
and the Land Cruiser.
That was a
So-
fun little day.
Anything else to add about your love affair with this vehicle? Yeah, I'm kind of, I used to think, well, Rich just loves Crusty, but Rich kind of loves all FCs.
All FCs, they're just fun. And the group of people that own them are very like-minded to me. You go online and you get into some of these forums and there's people, backstabbing each other, making crap out of people for this, that, and the other thing, and you get in the FC community and it's not like that. I mean, everybody, you can have the biggest piece of junk or you can have the best one out there and people are going to see it and they're going to like it the same.
And how big is the FC community?
Well, there's not a whole lot of FCs, so the community's not that big.
You and 12 other guys?
Yeah, pretty much. No, they've definitely had a resurgence over the last 8-10 years. Jeep came out with a Mighty FC concept a number of years ago and took it to SEMA, and a lot of times that was the first forward control vehicle that a lot of this generation people had ever seen.
Was that the one done on a TJ?
It was on a JK, actually.
Was it on a JK?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that was pretty neat, but then people started getting interested, well, what was the original one like? And then after that, there were some repower ones that were popping up. There's a handful of very nicely restored ones out there, floating around that guys use. And I got a bunch of my friends have some really nice ones. I got a friend down in Missouri. Craig Brockhouse has a whole fleet of them down there, but one of his is an old Ouray Tour Jeep. So It's got the big Surrey top and all the bench seats in the back like a school bus. And we go cruising around on that when we get together. And that one was, or when he bought it, it was a monster truck. So it had big tractor tires on it and stuff like that. So I'm glad that he found that and brought it back to its original glory.
Well, I'd say Crusty is absolutely the perfect condition. This is...
Yes.
What more can you ask?
Yeah, I don't... People ask me if I'm going to restore any of mine, and I really don't want to, because I just enjoy driving them like this. Like I said, we use it out on the property, for fence line and just screwing around, and we'll take it out with the local four-wheel drive club and putz around with them. And if I had a nice shiny one, I wouldn't use it like I do this.
One of the things, let's see if I can get into this video. I don't know if that'll work or not.
All right.
So one of the things that I love is when you guys have that day where you take all the new people out.
Yeah, the new run.
And the new run, and then you take Crusty. They have their new JLs and stuff, and you have Crusty out there, and you're like this old, dilapidated looking thing, and you show them what can be done with something that's
the newer
super old and
exactly the
crusty.
newer JKs and JLs are phenomenal rigs. Right out of the box. Much more comfortable than this, but it just goes to show that over the years, the four-wheel drive platform that Jeep built their name on, is universal, and they're a lot of fun. So,
well, we're gonna have a lot of fun tomorrow.
Yes, we will.
So, in a flash, we'll be back.
All right. Okay, stop. Back up. Good as